Amy Klobuchar. Senator Klobuchar, just simply your reaction to what happened yesterday in Minneapolis.
It was simply horrific. This, as you pointed out, an ICU nurse in the VA hospital in Minneapolis. That has got to be one of the most self-sacrificing jobs that anyone can have. An honorable job. He loved our veterans. He was with them in many times in the closing days of their lives. As his mom described him and dad, he was a kind-hearted soul. And they've asked us to tell the truth about him. And what we saw of how he died should never happen to an American citizen. He was called by the Trump administration officials a domestic terrorist when all he had in his hand was a cell phone. All he was doing was helping someone, a woman who'd been pushed over into the snow, into the ice. And then there was this scuffle and 6 agents shot him multiple times. And of course there has to be a thorough investigation of all of this. And we look at what happened to Renee Good. So what I have going in my state right now, Jonathan, is 3,000 ICE agents that outnumber the Minneapolis-St. Paul police, sworn officers 3 to 1. It's more ICE agents and border control than our 10 metro police departments. They are overwhelmed by this federal presence, as are our citizens, grabbing 2-year-olds away from their parents, putting them on planes to Texas, and then my office has to go and get them back, or taking an elder Hmong man in his underwear and then realizing they have the wrong guy. People are afraid, and 2 of 3, 2/3 of the recorded homicides in Minneapolis right now were committed by federal agents. 2 of 3. That's what we're dealing with, and that is why my message is simple. ICE is making us not more safe, they're making us less safe, and they need to get out of our state.
It's remarkable to hear what the Deputy Attorney General said about this. He said that essentially state and local officials, I'm going to read his words exactly, a federal investigation is ongoing. Make no mistake, this avoidable tragedy is a result of the total failure of Minnesota's city and state officials. He's blaming this.
I don't know how you can say
on state and local officials. What do you make of that?
I have been with these officials. I have seen them. I think you have too, pleading for peace. And somehow 50,000 peaceful protesters in 10 below weather, I was there with them marching, when they were able to march without any problems. And then the next day, a half a dozen ICE and border control agents couldn't handle a guy with a cell phone taking video of them and shot him. So I think it's pretty obvious what's going on here. And what needs to happen is they need to leave.
So, and we've seen the Secretary of Homeland Security almost in mirror images. I mean, she 2 weeks ago, she calls Renee Good a domestic terrorist. Now she is saying that this was an act of terrorism by Alex Preddy. Have you reached out to the secretary? Have you? And if you haven't, I mean, if you get, what's your message to her?
One of these constituents of mine was a poet, and the other was a nurse. They had no criminal records. So I would start with that. And I have reached out to the White House. I've reached out to the Justice Department. I have spoken to high-ranking people in the White House. And I've mostly said to them, if your goal was to go after fraud, that's a righteous goal, but that's not what this is. If your goal was to apprehend violent offenders, good, but that's not what you're doing anymore when you're taking 5-year-olds and putting them in your car, or rustling down citizens. Maybe one is Latino and 2 are white. They pick out the Latino and they say, where are you from? The guy's yelling, I was born here, I was born here. Throw him in the car, and if we're lucky, they'll let him out of that car a few bucks later because they get a bounty for picking people up. There is a reason that the International Association of Police Chiefs, which is a pretty conservative organization, just came out and said that police, federal, local, must follow the law and that they also must follow police procedure.
Yeah,
Police trust is based on how they interact with the community. So I just look at this whole thing, and it's wrong, and it's completely out of control and out of balance, and they need to leave our state.
Those police chiefs want a summit, want a meeting with federal law enforcement. Let me ask you about your Republican colleague, Bill Cassidy. He put out a statement, quite stark statement, in reaction to this, saying the events in Minneapolis are incredibly disturbing. The credibility of ICE and DHS are at stake. There must be a full federal and state investigation. We can trust the American people with the truth. But my question is not what Bill Cassidy said, it's the silence from your other Republican colleagues. We really haven't heard anything in the wake of this from other Republicans in Congress. Are you hearing from them privately? Do you expect that they feel the way Bill Cassidy feels?
We have had a few state legislators now speak out, which I've appreciated, Republican state legislators, and you're right, Bill Cassidy's the only one. I don't understand this because our colleagues privately have said some things to me, that's true, but this is actually an assault on the Constitution, and a lot of them care about this. Assault on the First Amendment with going after people the way they have and the right to assemble. Assault on the Second Amendment. You've had someone actually criticizing Alex for being a lawful gun permit owner, and that's what he was. He had a permit and he owned a gun. You assault on the Fourth Amendment for search and seizure. So they need to speak out because that is one way to get to this Trump administration. But they're not doing that right now, and it just shocks me because we have a bill in front of us. As you know, I am strongly opposed to more funding for ICE. I was strongly opposed when they tripled their budget this summer, $75 billion more. That money could go to local law enforcement. And instead, they loosened all the training requirements down from months to 47 days. They are violating the Fourth Amendment, that they are ramming in people's doors without a judicial warrant. They are refusing to have mandatory body cameras. They have clearly a leadership that should be removed. You can just go down the list of all the problems with this right now, and I really do appreciate that Senator Cassidy was brave enough to stand up and say something about it when no one else will. And in this point, silence is complicity.
All right, Senator Klobuchar, we appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you very much, Jonathan.